Hello, Mr. Sandhu. Welcome to Nilambor TV. It's a community channel and it has a very strong commitment for multiculturalism. So, I'm going to ask you very simple questions from the community people. So, first of all, how are you, Mr. Stan?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here with your viewers and excited to have the conversation.
Okay, and introduce yourself first. What you do, what?
So for me, I'm born and raised Canadian. I grew up in a small town in British Columbia, Quesnel, BC. And for those of you that don't know, it's a small town in central BC. My father and mother immigrated to Canada, just like many immigrants. I share a similar story. They immigrated here in the 1970s, and my dad got a job in the milling industry in central British Columbia, and he worked really hard out there in Quesnel, and my mom worked a lot of labor jobs, cleaning, restaurants, that type of stuff. But my parents came here for the Canadian dream, for a better future for themselves, for their kids. And so I grew up in that town. I moved to Calgary in 2003, and I've been a product of Northeast Calgary ever since. I went to Lester B. Pearson High School, and I graduated in 2004. And then I went off to the University of Calgary, and I studied actuarial science. So professionally, I'm an actuary, which is really mathematics, data analytics, statistics, that type of stuff, risk management, finance, accounting, all these disciplines all rolled into one. And I had a professional career. I worked many years in my discipline, and I'm also an avid volunteer in our community here in Northeast Calgary with our youth, with soccer, basketball, hockey. I volunteer quite a bit outside of that as well with community associations, and I'm a board member at the Genesis Center.
Oh, that's great. You really deserve to be a councillor, I think. I assume. Okay, like a simple question, like why are you in the race?
That's a great question. I think I say this a lot at the doors. The city of Calgary, this is a generational moment. We're at a crossroads. Everyone knows the tough situation we were in since 2014 with the economic downturn, recession, stagnation, our downtown office issues. 1/3 of our towers are vacant, which is a big problem because that's resulted in additional tax burden for the rest of the community, you and I, small business owners, retail, industrial. And for the last 4 years, for those viewers that don't know, I actually spent 4 years in the office that I'm now running for. I was the chief of staff in the office, the Ward 5 office. So I brought, I worked on a lot of positive investments into Northeast Calgary. I was part of the project that brought the new soccer fields at the Genesis Center, $6 million investment there. We got new funding for a rec center up in Cornerstone on Country Hills and 60th Street, a new high school site as well in Cornerstone. In Saddle Ridge Industrial, we got a new athletic park funded, 4 big FIFA-sized soccer fields, tournament quality. That will be really good for the local hospitality sector because it'll drive a lot of provincial and national tournaments right here into Northeast Calgary. Good for the local hotels, local restaurants. I worked really hard on public safety issues, on hailstorm recovery, anti-racism issues. So what I bring is obviously community connections, but experience. And you need that experience because on day one, this new council will be making a lot of important decisions that will impact the future of our city.
Oh, that's great. Great to know that you were involved there, basically. So yeah, that's a great thing. So there is a common perception from the people, like whenever someone elected, they just forget, like they don't care about constituency people. So how would you think about connectivity to increase the connectivity between you and the community people if you are elected?
This is a passion of mine to make sure that the community is at the forefront of everything that we do. I always tell people at the doors that this isn't about Stan's agenda. This is about our community, Northeast Calgary's agenda. And this is about everybody working together. Our slogan, our campaign slogan is Together We Can. If you go onto our website, we've had endorsements from community leaders that have lived in Northeast Calgary for their whole lives. Greg Steiner, he's been in Saddle Ridge for many, many years. He was part of the Genesis Center and many other major projects in Northeast Calgary. Sherry King, she's the executive director of the Genesis Center. Mark Langlois, the president of Falcon Ridge Community Association. Jonathan McKerney, Terry Lynn Martin, Saima Jamal. So many community leaders have come to me and said, Stan, we've worked with you on important projects and you need to put your name forward. So for me, I'm going to be committed to the community. I'm going to have an open door policy. Accountability and transparency is really important to me. I'll do a lot of town halls. I'll do a lot of roundtables, and I'll make sure that we work together as we move forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wish you will keep your word after election. So if you are elected, of course.
Right.
Yeah. So we all know that community needs more green space, parks, recreation center, especially in Ward 5. So how would you address that part if you are elected?
That's a good question. And I want to reiterate some of the positive investments we did bring over the last 4 years. The new field house that's funded in Cornerstone, that's going to take a lot of traffic away from the Genesis Center, from the north, because there is, I mean, it's a beautiful community hub, but it's over capacity. And we got a future high school site there as well. There'll be a library that's coming on as well. So that is an important investment for the northern communities of Skyview Ranch, Redstone, Cornerstone, and Cityscape. In Saddle Ridge Industrial, like I said, a multi-use athletic park is coming online. The soccer fields at the Genesis Center. So that progress we made, I will make sure we continue that progress. We have a lot of underutilized green spaces in Northeast Calgary. We have a lot of people that play new trending sports to Canada, such as field hockey and cricket. And we have the spaces to use. So I will work with the community to make sure we can repurpose some of the green spaces that we have already, so that they can be utilized and activated for the community moving forward. And one thing that we have to remember, everyone always talks about the councillors, the mayor, because those are the people that get elected. There's another body at City Hall. So we have you have City Council, but you also have City Administration. So City Council sets the strategy, but City Administration does the operations. Okay. And one problem we have with City Administration is out of the 50 top managers, administrative leadership team, from the general managers to the city manager and the directors, not one of them lives east of Deerfoot. Oh. So they don't know our issues. And I think that's important as well to understand that, because we do have a lot of smart people in middle management, and we'll work to make sure that they'll have opportunities to get into senior management so that they can make the right decisions for Northeast Calgarians as well.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, you're right. You're right. For public transportation, like especially the nighttime, the waiting time is higher, longer.
Right.
So I know you also know, I think some incident happened a couple of years before in the bus stop. So is there any way that you can reduce the waiting time at the bus stop after, especially in the nighttime?
So this is something we can work with Calgary Transit on, and I'm passionate about transit expansion up here in Northeast Calgary. I always say to people, Northeast Calgarians have the highest ridership out of all of Calgary for transit, whether it's LRT, whether it's the buses, and whether it's increased routes or frequency. We'll sit down with city administration to make sure our voice is heard. One thing I talk a lot about is expanding our LRT system as well. I always say world-class cities have world-class amenities. Calgary is one of the only major North American cities that doesn't have a LRT train connector to the airport. And I think that's an important investment, not only for Northeast Calgary, but for the city of Calgary. So we'll push for the LRT expansion, which is the blue line. Right now, it ends at Saddletown Station. We'll push to get it extended to the next stop is Savannah. But the final stop in the city's plans right now are between Redstone and Skyview at 128. So we'll prioritize that. I'll work with my fellow councillors to make sure they understand the needs of Northeast Calgarians are heard. But we also need to understand that funding sources also come from different levels of government. Yeah. I have relationships with people in the federal government. George Chahal, obviously I worked with him, and others as well. I also have really good relationships with the Minister of Transportation here provincially, Rajan Sani, and many others. So I think you need to be able to use those relationships, build those bridges, and make sure we get the investment into Northeast Calgary for these amenities.
Yeah, it's like a relationship is really is an asset for a counselor or whoever there, right? So I think you have a great things. Okay, so if you are elected, like, what is your plan about business people? Especially, like, so far is my experience, like, the business registration process is longer than expected. So, and the business taxes, especially in the during this COVID situation, do you have any plan to reduce the business taxes or freeze or whatever?
That's a great question. I think, like I said previously, since 2014, we've been challenged with economic downturn. With 1/3 of our downtown office towers being vacant, it posed a big problem for the rest of the city. Because what happened was, when the valuations of the buildings came down, the city taxes based on assessment value. So the city also collected less revenue. So we wanted to keep our services and programs and amenities at this level, but now our revenue shrunk. So then what happened was, they had to come to people like you and me and small business owners and industrial. We have some issues that we need to address. And for me, for all the listeners that are listening as well, we have a statutory document called the MGA, the Municipal Government Act. This is passed by the provincial government, and it mandates to every municipality how they can operate as a city. And taxation is part of the MGA. So taxation rules are very limited by the province. And this is something I'll work with the Minister of Municipal Affairs from the provincial government to advocate for taxation reform. Jyoti Gondek and myself, we've talked about this for the last 4 years. We've had a lot of conversations about taxation reform because we live in a boom and bust economy. I had an idea in 2017 that when times are good, especially for some of these downtown office towers that are owned by multinational REITs, multi-billion-dollar companies, when times are good, why don't we surcharge them a little bit, put it into a savings account, and when times are bad, you can use that money from the savings account and use them to pay for the programs and amenities and services. So these are bold actions that we need to take. But for small businesses that are facing red tape at City Hall, I will advocate to remove some of that red tape as well, because we need to make sure the environment we set for business is an environment so that they can unleash their true potential and that they can thrive in this economic recovery.
Yeah. I'm very hopeful about you. Like, you're not going to forget us after you are elected. So the same thing. Like, after business taxes, it came to property taxes. I think answer would be the same. But if you have anything additional for the common people for the property taxes?
Well, I think it does come back to taxation reform, but also we have to clean up at City Hall as well. I mean, where there's inefficiencies, we should clean that up and we should save some money where we can. But I think it's a holistic issue. It's a big problem. We have to also focus on filling up those downtown office towers, diversifying our economy. We've been based on oil and gas for the last 50 as long as you can remember, and I think it's important that we focus on clean energy, we focus on agribusiness and technology and other industries. We incentivize corporations, multinational corporations, to move their headquarters to Calgary because we're a young city, we're a smart city, and we're very affordable. So we have the right makeup to incentivize those companies, but I feel that over the past several years, government, whether it's from the federal, provincial, or local level, has gotten in the way of unleashing some of that potential.
Mm-hmm. Good, very good. And these questions kind of like very common questions from the people. Like 3 beans. City has 3 beans, like black bean, blue bean, and green beans. Like sometimes we don't need even green beans or blue beans or whatever. But is there any way that you can reduce the monthly payment, whatever, I mean, not you, you can propose at the city council, then these 3 bins, the whatever monthly cost, it could reduce a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we have to look at things holistically, whether it's your municipal tax bill or whether it's your NMAX bill, where waste and recycling and water is part of that as well. But like I said, if we do find efficiencies at City Hall, we can pass those savings then along to our taxpayers, the residents of Calgary. So it doesn't matter whether it's from waste and recycling or from our Calgary recreation facilities, planning and development, the application fees or business licensing fees. I think we can find ways to have cost savings, but we need leaders that understand business, and we need leaders that have experience, and we need leaders that can get this done on day one, and that's what I bring to the table.
Yeah, okay, very good. So now, like as a business people, like and a community people, has a perception that city council and the builders has a deal. You don't have to answer. If you don't want to, then it's fine. Just it's a perception type of thing. Like there might be a deal between city council and the new builders, and that's why the new communities, there is a lot, like lot size is becoming narrower, like 0 lot or so.
Right.
Like reducing green spaces.
Right.
So how do you address this one if you are elected though?
I think we need to work with all of our partners and make sure that the way our communities are built out are designed for the residents that live in the communities. I think if you look at examples, I brought City Manager David Duckworth and General Manager of Transportation Michael Thompson out here a little while ago, and we talked about the Saddletown Circle. And I said to them, this is probably the worst designed circle I've seen in all of Calgary. And their response to me was, if we could go back 15, 20 years, we would redesign it and we would repurpose these communities. We would do it a different way. So the point of in why I say that is, the way our communities have developed out, I mean, the decisions some of the leaders made in previous councils and many years ago reflects on how our communities are looking today. And so I will make sure that new developments that come online are in line with what the community actually needs and desires. We need to make sure we have the right amount of park spaces, green spaces, rec centers, libraries, and everything else. Like I said, the recreational opportunities, the soccer fields that we're bringing on, the new rec center we have. These are good investments we've made, but I'll continue that progress because I do have that experience, and I'll continue to fight for Northeast Calgary from day one.
Okay, very good. This is I have done with the written questions, but this is in my mind. City Council has a fiscal balanced budget. I know you were in City Council there, right? You helped a lot, so you know better than me. But the thing is, there is a balanced budget, right? A fiscal balanced budget. So my question is like that, if you put a scale, like this is the burden of the people and this is the City Council here, the balancing, right? So how would you address, to keep this burden in status quo, in 2 or 3 years, and you have to make this balancing budget with some other sources of fund. I know there will be inflation, there will be something you need fund here, but how you think about this one too?
No, that's a good point, and that's another thing I talk a lot about. I talk about the post-pandemic recovery. As we get past this fourth wave of the pandemic, and obviously it's important. Public safety is top of mind on a lot of people's priorities. We need to get through this pandemic, and then after that, we're going to start talking a lot about the budgets. Obviously, there's a big budget with the City of Calgary coming up in November, and I always tell people, look, and I've been there. I've done all the work behind the scenes. City administration gives big binders like this, 4 or 5 of them, and they expect you to know this information and expect you to be well versed to make decisions on multi-billion-dollar budgets. And so I think this is where you need the right experience, you need creativity, you need private sector experience on finance, on budgeting, so that you can make the right decisions so it doesn't impact and burden whether it's residents, whether it's small business owners, so that we can all get out of this recovery. And I will always make sure that nobody is left behind in the economic recovery, especially Northeast Calgarians, some of the hardest working people that I know.
Okay, so would you think that you would be the right person then?
I think I'm absolutely the right person. And that's why I put my name forward. Honestly, that's why that's why I put my name forward. I'm doing this for Northeast Calgary. I'm doing this for the city. I had so many people, councillors reach out to me and say, Stan, we've seen what you can do. You need to put your name forward. Community leaders saying the same thing. And that's why I put a pause on my personal career, which is obviously being a pricing actuary, to say, I'm going to give back to the community. I want to provide service. I want to make sure that the future of our city is bright. Calgary has always been an energetic, vibrant city, and we haven't felt that energy over the last couple of years. And I want to make sure the decisions this council makes is aligned with that future of Calgary, so that Calgary can come roaring back with an economic recovery.
Okay, Mr. Stan Sandhu.
Thank you so much for your time.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.